force in Pristina. Tomorrow you can see the last of Calendar's special reports. We were in Kosovo as the deadline approached for local independence fighters to hand in their weapons before they made the change from army to protection force. The lads from our region had the difficult task of patrolling the centre of the capital. They spent the night trying to round up weapons and also protect Serb civilians in the city. The job wasn't made any easier by people firing rounds into the air to celebrate the occasion. But 90 days after the ground forces arrived in Kosovo, local people gave the British soldiers their vote of confidence.
They are welcome. We need them very much. I think they will support us training our forces until we will be able to guard our borders and to protect our state by ourselves.
Yes, so don't forget to join us on Calendar tomorrow for David Harrison's full report from Kosovo. Now, we may be settling into winter, I'm afraid, but things have certainly been fairly hot in one part of our region where youngsters have been getting a real taste of Africa. Believe it or believe it not, and it's absolutely true, a group of Zulus have taken up residence near Huddersfield. The mighty Zulu Nation Dance Troupe are visiting schools in and around our region to share their customs and their culture, and a good time has been had by all. And Charlton has been to meet them.
It's a long way from the Valley of 1,000 Hills, the beautiful tribal homeland they've left behind. But these Zulu warriors have come to Huddersfield on a mission.
The main aim for us is to teach the children about our customs, in different aspects that we have in our culture. And even though we cannot go that through with them, but at least they have an idea, what is it being a Zulu.
And the vibrant dancing and costumes make a real change from normal school assemblies.
I like when all the men put the shields up and run them down, and I like all the songs which they do and all the drums.
Well, they're like colourful, and I like the beads that they wear because they probably took a long time to make them.
They see us as very interesting people. They sometimes ask us, do you kill animals to eat them? Such questions. So it's very nice to work with them. And after we have spent an hour or more, or even 30 minutes, they become opened up to us. They see that, no, we're only human, and this is only natural. This is us.
But it's not just an exhibition. The youngsters themselves get to have a go and bring some South African warmth and colour to Yorkshire.
Yeah, the Zulus came to... I think you'd look quite good in one of those headdresses.
Yeah, they're a bit taller than me. They wouldn't fit me, any of that.
Oh.
Now then, it's that time of year when the sound of cornets and flugelhorns can be heard going into overtime at band rooms throughout Yorkshire, because Saturday sees the National Brass Band Championships in London and a record number of 5 Yorkshire bands, 5 have won places.
Yes, so all this week we're going to be profiling the local contenders. Well, Venters starts tonight by looking at the brass band equivalent of Man United.
It's been a great year for the Yorkshire Building Society, and it all began in Bavaria. In April, they beat the pick of continental bands to win the European Championship in Munich. And since then, their silverware has multiplied as they added the All England Masters and the British Open to their tally. All that remains for an historic Grand Slam is the national title, and that'll be decided at Royal Albert Hall on Saturday.
The band going into it winning 3 major titles, obviously, I would imagine are the favourites to win it, but that doesn't always mean we're going to do, it's a lot of hard work.
So it's rehearsals every night for the complex test piece that 20 bands will be performing at the Albert Hall.
Well, it's a tremendous test, and that's what it's supposed to be, going to the Royal Albert Hall for the national finals. I suppose you would expect the music to be very, very testing, and this piece of music is.
As well as the band trophies, Morgan Griffiths has picked up Euphonium Player of the Year. And David King has been awarded the medal of the Worshipful Company of Musicians. It's 6 years since the Yorkshire Building Society took over the sponsorship of the former Hammond Source Works Band. 6 years that have seen them bounce back as one of Britain's finest.
I think it's always fair to say that the band that's winning is very, very, very difficult to stop, and this one in particular.
Yes, more brass bands tomorrow.
Will Venters looks at the chances of a band that's moved on from its coalfield roots.
Ray Sykes joined Carlton Main Fickley Band way back in 1952. His father had been manager of the colliery in South Elmsall, which employed 3,000 men.
My father came home one day and he said, "Ray, I want you to join this junior band." So I thought, well, I'll stick it for 6 months and see how it goes. And I've been it for 47 years. So I'm just starting to enjoy it.
Back in the 70s, the band were among the top 5 in Britain. Then came the miners' strike, which took a heavy toll on the all-male band, most of whom worked at the pit.
The band came down to a point where we were down to 6 players. And it would have been the easiest thing in the world to say, well, that's it, the band's gone. And I used to go up to the band room on a night time. Many times there'd be just me there. Loads of times there'll be 2 or 3. But my passion for this band is so much that we had to carry on. We had to carry on.
But worse was to come. In 1993, the miners worked their last shift, and the colliery became a memory. With it went the levy that had been the band's main source of income.
We exist by playing concerts the length and breadth of the country. And that raises money to buy new uniforms. But I must admit, it's not enough.
They brought in a new conductor, strengthened the band's lineup of soloists, and within 3 years they've won through to the top contest in the country.
I feel very excited about the prospect. And we recently played for the first time again at the British Open, or from my first time at the British Open, on the 11th of September, and gave an exceedingly good account of ourselves. And only can be taken a lot of heart out of that performance.
We're now 1999 Yorkshire champions. We beat the reigning national champions, we beat the reigning European champions. It's fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And we're going to the Royal Albert Hall, and I'll tell you what, we're going to win that. No 2 ways about it. The work and the effort that we're putting in every single night in the band room, every single night. We'll do it, without a doubt.
Great stuff, wasn't it? Will Venters reporting. We'll have another of the championship-chasing bands tomorrow. Now then, just over...
Bands anyway, as they prepare for the national championships, which are held at the Albert Hall in London on Saturday.
Yeah, they are. The Yorkshire Building Society Band have already won 3 top trophies this season. Tonight we're going to meet their main rivals, planning to prevent them from completing the Grand Slam. Here's Will Venters.
The name Brighouse and Rastrick has been synonymous with brass band music for a century. This was their victory parade back in 1946 when they brought home the National Cup, something they plan to repeat this year. The range of the band's music has broadened over the years. As one of the few top bands without a big sponsor, they realised the importance of playing tunes that will put bums on seats. The need to bring in paying customers has extended to cross-cultural collaborations with groups like the Horton Weavers.
There was always the time evening call, when the band in the...
But when the Royal Albert Hall beckons, the music gets a little more complex.
Let's do it. Let's change that. Let's change it.
Brighouse are current holders of the National Championship and have every intention of returning with the cup on Saturday.
I'm sure we'll do our best and hopefully come home with the trophy once more. It seems to have settled quite well into the band room and also quite well onto our concert platform.
But what about those rivals over the hill, the Yorkshire Building Society, who've already taken 3 top trophies this year? Are they unstoppable?
Not at all, no. I'm sure they'll be worried about us performing as well as we can. They've got to beat us, and every other band has as well.
Will Venters reporting there. Now then, it's a busy sporting week with cup football, the Rugby Union World Cup coming to the region tomorrow, and as usual, more controversy in Rugby League. Let's join Johnny Shires, who's at Ellen Road. John.
Yes, thanks very much, Mike. The Rugby League, Rugby Union and
Honeys are more used to playing to crowds in huge arenas, but when they dropped into a bar in Leeds, there was just a handful of very lucky people there to watch this one-off gig, including a few of their most loyal fans, and our man Fraser Maud was amongst them.
There was tight security at Poonana's in Leeds for the informal concert. If your name wasn't down, you definitely weren't coming in. Everyone was waiting with poorly concealed excitement, especially two lucky youngsters from Guiseley School.
What are you going to ask them?
Their autograph.
You're not going to ask them for any hot dates or anything?
Well, I wish.
I'd ask them how they got into the music industry, what it was that they did first, and what they did, you know, to get records signed and stuff like that.
Then it was showtime. And then came the big moment for Michael and Catherine.
Michael.
Hello. How are you doing?
We're really good.
The girls are used to playing for rather more than 50 people, but they can't wait to get back to Yorkshire.
No, we often don't know what we're doing from one day to the next. I don't know where I'm going tomorrow morning.
Probably soon, yeah.
Sooner than you think,
yeah.
But next time it's probably more likely to be something like the Sheffield Arena than...
You know what, we hope so.
So next time they come up north, hopefully a few more people will be watching them strut their stuff.
Well, it's brass band time now. This week, of course, we've been looking at the 5 Yorkshire bands who are taking on the country's finest in the National Championships on Saturday.
Now, we've already profiled the Giants Yorkshire Building Society in Brighouse and Rastrick. Tonight, Will Venters looks at, well, I guess they are outsiders, really.
Now, there's a common assumption that brass bands and booze go together like fish and chips, so it may seem odd to find a band called Rothwell Temperance. There's been a band with that name since 1881, when members of the old Rothwell band fell out over the demon drink. Half of them wanted to spend their daily wages of 3 and 6pence on beer. That would buy you 21 pints in those days. The other half became the Temperance Band. A century and a bit on, they're still playing, but the name doesn't stop them having a good time.
I think what really makes the band special is that everybody gets on together well. There's a good atmosphere in the band. It's not just the playing, we have a good social section in the band. And I think it helps to knit everybody together.
Dave Roberts has been to the Albert Hall before as cornet player with Black Dyke, but it's his first time as a conductor.
The success of the band has been absolutely fantastic. We started in the 3rd section in 1993, and the band was going through a bit of a dodgy patch, and I took over the band and was lucky enough to win my first 2 Yorkshire Championships, and I think it was 8 contests in a row with the band, and promotion comes with that, just like the football leagues, really.
The rise to championship level has had a financial cost, and like many other bands, they've been helped by the National Lottery. Going to London alone costs the band £6,000.
The band are very realistic. We know the best bands in the world are, and we know the best players are, but we're doing very well. All I can ask is the players, you know, give their very best, and I think we can cause a few upsets. We've done it before.
And Rothwell are so confident they're already training the champions of tomorrow.
Yes, Will Venters with the Rothwell Temperance Band. And here with us are 2 young band members. We've got Stephen Haynes and Gemma Howell, both 14 years old and both very resplendent in your uniforms. Looks a little big for you, young man. You haven't borrowed it, have you?
No.
You're going to grow into it?
I will, yeah, hopefully.
Now, come on, what's it going to be like this weekend? Because it's a massive thing to take part in, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very prestigious event. And
Spell prestigious.
Well, we can't. Why not?
No, we can't. No.
I'm just looking forward to it very much.
You've been practising really, really hard, though, haven't you? Because, I mean, it looks really easy there. How many times a week do you practice now?
Well, usually it's 2 times a week, but lately it's been every night this week.
Every single night? And that doesn't include what you do at home?
No.
Which is a lot of work at home. Now, what about the pieces that you play? Because I don't really like the theme piece, the test piece this time. It's really complicated, isn't it?
It gets harder as you get higher up the sections.
What does that mean? We don't understand.
Well,
things.
we're in the championship section now, so it's a
Oh,
lot
right.
harder and more complicated, but...
So you are the very, very best of the very best, yeah?
Nearly.
Oh.
I've heard there are problems at the end of the piece, aren't there, when you all stand up? What's the problem?
Oh, yeah, well, everybody's very tall.
Nobody
apart
can
from-
see you.
No.
Why can't you kick shins just before the start of the competition? Is it Brighouse and Rush? Who's the favourites?
Yorkshire Building Society.
Yeah, they've won 3 this year, haven't they?
Yeah.
Now, seriously, though, I mean, you're not the most famous band in the competition, and I'm not being horrid. Are you going to win?
Well, I think we're just going to go and...
Say yes, you've got to think you're going to, yes?
Yes.
Yes?
All right, then. Yes.
Well, if you do, you can come back and tell us what it was like. All
Yeah.
right, then.
And if
Thank
you
you very
don't,
much.
forget about it, yeah?
Yeah.
Just don't even think about calendar.
Thanks a
Now,
lot.
we all remember Orville, you know, the green bird in nappies that wants to fly, but...
Brass bands, in fact, headed down to London at the weekend with high hopes for the National Championship. Now, if you were watching last week, you'll have seen our special reports on each of the bands taking part.
Brighouse and Rushton had won the trophy twice, while the Yorkshire Building Society won every other competition this year, and they were hoping for the Grand Slam. But smaller bands like Rothwell Temperance, in their first final for 60 years, well, they still had their hopes. So who were the winners and who were the losers? Here's Calendar's Julie Beanland.
Saturday morning at the Royal Albert Hall, and Britain's top bands arrived for battle. Yorkshire Building Society had come down hoping to complete the Grand Slam, but they've made the worst possible draw, number 1.
Well, the draw was disappointing. Nobody's ever won off number 1, but I suppose that it was fate.
Conductor David King still throws himself into the number with a vengeance. YBS's bad luck is good news for the 4 other Yorkshire bands. Brighouse and Rushwick must have felt they were well on the way to taking the cup home for the 3rd year running. Certainly, they're the audience's favourite. Frickley's finest are already drowning their sorrows. There's a lot of time to kill with 20 bands to get through. But there's none of that for the Rothwell Temperance. They may be the total outsiders, but they're giving it all they've got. Eight hours later, it's all over. The cup's not coming back to Yorkshire. Fodens from Nantwich have pipped Brighouse into 2nd place.
Disappointed. We thought we'd won it. Really, we put a first-class performance in.
But Rothwell are celebrating. For them, winning 6th place is like Scarborough reaching the semi-finals of the FA Cup.
All I can say is I'm just so proud of the players. I knew they could do it, and they responded, and hopefully the band will go from strength to strength.
And the celebrations had only begun.
Well, that's a shame, isn't
it's
it?
a pity, isn't it? I thought one of them.
So Yorkshire, as that should be, shouldn't it?
I know they're quite good, though, at Foden, even though they are
all male bands. More and more top female players are coming through the ranks, and there are only a tiny number of men-only bands left, although 2 of them are among Yorkshire's biggest names.
Women have become a familiar sight on the concert platform, but as the film Brastoff reminded us, it's not long since the arrival of a woman was a shock to male players. Brastoff was filmed right here, but you'll still look in vain for a woman in Grimethorpe Colliery Band. There's not been a working miner in the band for some years, but it's still an all-male outfit. The big screen story of Tara Fitzgerald wowing the men with her flugelhorn has not been repeated in real life.
I think that's basically down to 2 things. A, there's never been a woman apply for a position in the band as a player. And secondly, the industry that the band originated from, it was a heavy industry, which it was a male oriented industry, mining.
At Brighouse and Rostrick, it's a similar story. The only females you'll find in their band room are spectators.
And it wasn't just the band room where women weren't welcome.
The band bus used to be a strict no-go area for females. At big events, wives and girlfriends came on a supporters coach, but woe betide anyone who missed it on the return trip.
Tony, who was a horn player,
came on the bus and he said, my wife's missed the supporters' bus home, and she's asked if she could be allowed to travel home on the band bus. Well, straight away the secretary said, well, we'll have to have a vote. So he just put it to the band and he said, does anybody on the bus object to Tony's wife coming on the bus? Every single hand on the bus went up. And the strange thing was, the first hand to go up was Tony's.
Blackdyke too used to be very much a boys' club until this January. That's when Leslie Howie became the first woman to don the Blackdyke uniform.
I knew of this young lady called Leslie Howie. She was a fantastic young star on the tenor horn. So initially I said to Leslie, how about coming up to the band and helping us out for a concert, doing a few rehearsals. She came along and she impressed James Watson and a number of the band. And we were still looking for a home player. And it was almost as if she was an invisible person, because, well, who are we going to get? Well, there's Fred Bloggs and there's Joe Smith. And yeah, but she was good the other night, wasn't she? Yeah, but she is a girl. You know, that's the problem. She's a girl. And Jim Watson said, well, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, she was an excellent player. Why didn't we invite her to join the band? So that's what we did.
Leslie's been followed by Michelle Ibbotson, and just this week, Blackdyke signed its third female player. But what about the few remaining male bastions?
It isn't a policy of the band to exclude women. If someone of sufficient ability applies, then they would be included in the band. We have women on committees that support the band, so they're not excluded from the organisation of the Brighouse and Rostrick Band. I think if a woman applies and she's good enough, then we might see another Tara Fitzgerald in Bandroom.
Tradition is a funny thing in brass bands. There are still 2 or 3 brass bands that, I don't know if it's, they say that possibly the correct women haven't applied to come to that band, or possibly they're not good enough players, which I think personally is a load of rubbish, absolute load of rubbish. They're sticking to their old-fashioned ways. And all I can say to those bands, they don't know what they're missing.
Has always had a strong association with the pits, and as Carolyn reports, that legacy has managed to survive the disappearance of the coal industry.
Now it's a bit of wasteland waiting to be reclaimed by nature, but once this was Frickley Colliery, which gave jobs to 3,000 men and life to 2 brass bands. When the pit closed, it meant economic disaster for South Emsall, and could have spelt the end for the two bands who relied on the traditional levy paid by the miners. Ray Sykes was typical of the older band members.
My father was colliery manager in 1952, and we started a junior band. And my father came home one day and he said, "Ray, I want you to join this junior band." So I thought, well, I'll stick it for 6 months and see how it goes. And I've been in it for 47 years. So I'm just starting to enjoy it.
The band hit a low ebb after the miners' strike. Following a year without pay, many players left the area for other bands or other jobs.
The band came down to a point where we were down to 6 players. And it would have been the easiest thing in the world to say, well, that's it, the band's gone. And I used to go up to the band room on a night time. Many times there'd be just me there. Loads of times there'll be 2 or 3. But my passion for this band is so much that we had to carry on. We had to carry on. And it's very difficult trying to entice new players into the band when there's only 6 there. We were relegated into a lower section. And things looked really, really glum. But we fought on, we fought on.
And the band have bounced back in a big way. This year, they were Yorkshire champions and won a place in the national final. But a place at the Royal Albert Hall is not enough to give a band financial stability. Frickley are still without a major sponsor and survive thanks to a nameless donor from Sheffield.
And they've been absolutely tremendous, absolutely tremendous. Without a doubt, we couldn't have survived. And we're surviving now.
The second band, supported by the colliery, Frickley South Emsall Band, are also fighting their way back. They've risen from 4th to 2nd section in the rankings, and they've had a lottery grant, although sponsorship from Standard Fireworks has now disappeared. A few miles away is a band with similar roots, but a lot less worries. Grimethorpe Colliery Band used to have the ultimate sponsor, someone who would give the players jobs. Bob Childs was a young euphonium player in Wales when he got a call from South Yorkshire.
They offered me a job at Grimethorpe Colliery just to play in the band. And being quite a naive Welshman at the time, I was all prepared to go and work underground, you know, to earn my money. And it was only when I got there that I realised that I was actually getting paid a very good wage, underground wage, for just practising. That's all I had to do.
And when the coal industry all but vanished, there was a lifeline for the band.
But once RJB bought the pits in 1995, then they actually offered to sponsor the band and came up with a sponsorship package which was appreciated and accepted by everybody.
Brastoff brought international recognition to Grimethorpe, and right now they're planning return trips to Australia and Japan.
Congratulations to Grimethorpe, who've just won the TUC Championships. And next week, Carolyn meets one of the region's youngest brass bands. Now, I'm sure many of you will have started your Christmas shopping, so it's probably a very good time to...
Is on the changing world of brass bands now, and we saw the other week how it's no longer an all-male environment. And as Carolyn's been finding out, one of the major changes in recent years has been the age of the players.
This was the traditional image of brass players, but like policemen, bandsmen are getting younger. The average age of many bands is now in the early 20s, but are enough young people coming through to keep up the standards?
All of a sudden there weren't the influx of players coming from the north down to the south, on brass instruments in particular, and whilst there still are good youngsters up here, we haven't got the training facilities that we used to have. We used to have a junior band at Black Dyke.
So Black Dyke have launched a £100,000 appeal to refurbish their old band room as a centre of excellence to train the players of tomorrow. Not that there aren't some talented young players here already. This is Stephen Hames. He's only 14 and already he's played at the Royal Albert Hall. Stephen is a member of Rothwell Temperance Band.
It is a very young band if you look round. The average age is something like 18, and I think the future's bright for the band because we have so many young players that can only improve.
Rothwell have had a phenomenal rise in recent years, storming from the bottom to the top section and winning their way into the championships.
Well, we'll be massive underdogs. We're in a very good position. It's our very first year in the championship section. Some of these bands have been in the section for 50, 60 years, and obviously the band are very realistic. We know the best bands in the world are, and we know the best players are, but we're doing very well. All I can ask is the players, you know, give their very best, and I think we can cause a few upsets. We've done it before.
And even Stephen here seems positively ancient compared to members of the region's newest band. Lofthouse Youth 2000 was only formed this year.
Well, I was approached in June of this year by a group of parents to ask whether or not I would like to help reform the old Lofthouse Colliery Band. The first rehearsal we had 10 members. Now we've slowly built up and we've got approximately 26.
At the moment, it's a question of begging and borrowing equipment, but the band's already made an impact on both young and old members.
I make a lot of friends and I learn things about playing in a group that you can't learn when you're doing solo work.
I've been to more jobs, like concerts and things, with this band. You get more confidence and you get to meet friends and you get to play in competitions and meet other bands and have a good time.
There's no age barrier whatsoever. You're all equal, and it's on playing ability. There are some younger ones that are better than the older ones, and vice versa.
Young James has two ambitions.
To play for Grimthorpe and be an steelwork driver.
And if you could only do one?
Being a steelwork driver.
The Royal Albert Hall's still a long way off for Lofthouse, but Rothwell are on stage already, giving it everything. They placed sixth, and to them, that's as good as gold.
obviously a lively night out. Well, fans of Rothwell Temperance Band can see them at Garforth Community College tomorrow night. But that's just about it for tonight. We've got more flower arranging tomorrow with wonderful George Smith. Gainers in Selby for next half hour. But let's start by joining Cy Chadwick, who's on the lookout for new Action Time challenges to tackle next year. Now, if you know of an interesting project that could benefit from the Action Time touch, please give our helpline team a call right now. They also want to hear from you if you'd like to help out with our ongoing Right to Read campaign. The number to read... Have a dog. Well, Jan's back in the first week of the new year, solving more problems for dogs and their owners. And if you want a fact sheet on the subject, you can get one by writing to us here at Tonight. Mark your envelope, dog fact sheet, and the address, of course, is Yorkshire Television, Leeds LS3 1JS. That's dog fact sheet, Yorkshire Television, Leeds LS3 1JS. But now for the last in our series, looking at the changing face of brass bands. Now, this year's top contest in the brass band world is actually held down in London. And for this last film, Carolyn followed the Yorkshire contenders down to the capital to find out what makes brass bandsmen tick.
Under the watchful eye of the newly gilded Prince Albert, the creme de la creme of Britain's brass bands will be battling it out. It's the Wembley of the brass band world, the national championship which draws enthusiasts from all over the country. But there's no toe tappers in here because all 20 of the bands play exactly the same piece of music. The adjudicators are hidden away in a curtained box, judging the bands blind. At stake is a trophy and a £2,000 top prize. Not that anyone's going to get rich out of the day's proceedings. It costs up to £6,000 to take a band to London for the event. So why do they do it?
99.9 recurring % of all the bands in the British Isles exist for a number of people who enjoy making music together, play brass instruments, and so the repertoire they play is the brass band repertoire. They don't exist for money, they don't exist for glory, they exist for the sheer fun of making music together. And that really is what the brass band is all about.
For some, it's a family affair. Bob Charles is principal soloist and assistant conductor with Black Dyke. Wife Lorraine plays flugelhorn with EYMS. Son David is principal euphonium with Brighouse and Rastrick. Daughter Lisa's at university, but she still fits in guest spots with Black Dyke. And if that's not enough, brother Nick is a top conductor.
Well, it's not so bad for us because we're actually involved in the music and we've got a lot to think about. But think about my poor old mother, that she doesn't know who to support. She's sitting there with a Brighouse badge on and an Ever-Ready badge and all the rest of the badges.
Music's always been very important, brass music. I know with our children we really tried initially to steer them away from brass music, but must be in their genes because they're in brass as well.
Some bandsmen, though, have to work a bit harder at getting their offspring into the movement.
I put a cornet in my son's bedroom. Never opened it. And I was just waiting for him to say when he got to that 4-year-old, "What's this, Dad?" You know, and then then you start teaching him. But unfortunately, he never opened the box. But my daughter did. I mean, my daughter, I put a mouthpiece into her hand, and she treated it like a dummy, and then when she was old enough to speak, and she said, "What goes on the end of this, Dad?" And you stick a cornet on, you've cracked it, you're there. And, you know, music's a fantastic thing. It speaks any language. And the brass band movement, it must be the finest movement in the world.
Back at the Albert Hall, the bands are still playing away, while those lucky enough to get an early draw are wetting their whistles.
Lisa, you've come all the way from Selby. Why?
Because I just love brass bands. The atmosphere and everything's just brilliant. It's really good.
And are you supporting them?
Oh, definitely.
How?
Screaming at the top of my voice and then going out for a curry and beers later as well.
I've come all the way from Winchester and I play in a brass band in Winchester, so we've come up to listen to the Nationals today to hear some really good brass bands.
The contest's over, and the prize has gone the wrong side of the Pennines to Lancashire band Foden's. But one of the Childs brothers is in the money.
Now, come on, truthfully, don't you feel a little bit sorry for all those Yorkshire bands?
In a word and in French, no. No, not on this occasion. I'm sure that there's quite a few of the lads from Yorkshire Society already came up and said congratulations, and it does mean a lot. We all have a fantastic rivalry, but the friendly is also there. So, yeah, I'm really pleased. No, I don't feel sorry for them because I got a feeling that they'll be holding this cup as well soon.
You cannot actually explain what it's all about. A musician is a musician. And to me, the best musicians in the world are brass band people. Because they do it, and it's from there. It's not about that. It's because they love doing it.
And the audience are given a treat by two more of the Childs clan.
Well done to them and all the bands that took part in our series. Well, that's just about it for tonight, but we're back at the same time tomorrow. Our special musical guest is Charlie Lansborough singing I Still Can't Say Goodbye. Carolyn Hodgson visits